Welcome back to the Get to Know You series. Today we have Matt and Keegan with us. We're really excited for you guys to be here. So it's been a minute since we've done one of these, but we're glad that you're back with us. So why don't you guys just start, whichever one of you, and just tell us about who you are or what you do.
All right, my name is Matt. I am a physical therapist for Mercy. And so that's kind of what I do for work. And I don't know if you want anything else. Okay.
My name is Keegan, and I am the general manager for 2 bowling centers in Springfield, Enterprise Park Lanes and Sunshine Lanes. And then I also coach cheerleading part-time for Glendale. Yeah.
So basically, Keegan brings the party, and Matt takes care of any injuries. So that's basically what we're hearing. No, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit about maybe how you came to Abundant and or how you came to know the Lord.
For sure. Okay, so Matthew and I started dating, and we were both raised in church. We both had a church background. We both had a relationship with Christ. Maybe not at the, maybe not where we wanted to be in our lives, though. We knew that was important, but we weren't attending church regularly, things like that. So Matt and I met, and immediately we decided that we wanted to find a church home together. That was not the place my mom attended church here in Springfield, and that was not where he had kind of been going. We went to a couple churches before we came to Abundant, but I have a family friend that has been longtime comers to Abundant Life, and she's like, hey, you guys should come here. And I think it was the 3rd church we visited, and we just kept coming. So we felt like this was a good place for us. We immediately felt welcomed. Friendship started almost immediately. That connection, that, in our new relationship together, and then bringing, God into that as well, I think was something that we knew we wanted more of. We wanted to continue doing.
I don't have a ton to add. I would just say that we aren't the most outgoing, and I don't know. We were kind of just pulled in by the church, and that's really what we love about this church, is just how outgoing the church body is as a whole. So I would say that really helped us. So
Yeah, and you guys serve doing a lot of I call it the techie stuff, because it's over my head, but helping run sound, doing the words on screen, all of those things, you guys do that pretty often. So if you haven't seen them, it's because they're back there in the sound booth. And you can now say hi and stop in. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, so let's go to Keegan. So Keegan, you were just mentioning that how you're like in general management over the 2 bowling alleys. Kind of explain like your day-to-day process as being a manager over people.
Wow. Okay, so I manage all different kinds of people. I manage people younger than me. I manage people older than I am. So it's making those connections with people that are through really like 3 different generations. And I can't treat, his sister-in-law is one of my employees. I can't treat her the same way I treat somebody that's been employed at our center for 35 years or 40 years even. And it makes me, figure out how I need to build those relationships with people and know what works for them, because I can't treat everybody the same. Everybody's different, and that's really a big challenge, but, something that I do daily. So, yeah.
So the reason why I ask that is because sometimes managing people is a ministry in itself, and it can be very difficult at times. And I'm starting to learn that myself, but it's one of those things like, okay, I know I need to have a professional relationship with these individuals, but also at the same time, I want to expand the kingdom of God and really pursue people in that way. So kind of lean towards a direction of how do you show grace to people at your workplace while also trying to instruct and show Jesus at the same time?
So grace is a perfect thing. I work with a lot of people who have never had a job before. So it's, being understanding to their situations. It's a minimum wage job a lot of the time. So people who are just starting out, or maybe they haven't worked in a while and now they're starting with us. So it's a lot of grace and it's a lot of understanding. And for me, it's just being kind and listening and being there for them if maybe they're not in a great place or a great situation, trying to be helpful with them by giving them a place to work, and then helping the bowling center feel like home to them, because they have a manager or a management team or their owners, operators that truly do care about them and that want the best for them, not only in a working environment, but also, personally. And that's something, we try to make the bowling center feel like home. When I was born, I came home, or my parents left the hospital, they took me to the bowling center. And then after Hudson was born, the first place that we went was the bowling center. So, sorry. But so it's just helping people give them a home and be, understanding. So.
All right, so Matt, you were saying you work for Mercy, and obviously that's a massive medical field. And at Abundant, we truly believe in miracle healings. We truly believe in the opportunity just to see God move on a physical level. And so with that in mind, as you go throughout your work every day, there's a lot of people who have these physical issues that might not know Jesus, or a lot of people who have these physical issues who don't believe in miracle healings. And so obviously with that in the back of your mind, what is your process on your ministry at your workplace?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I like to think of it as I see people most of the times kind of at their lowest point. They've been through quite a bit physically, and sometimes it's been a pretty long process for a lot of them. So a lot of the times it's just kind of listening to kind of the needs that they have, and really just everyone has different needs. Most of the time people just want to be heard. So lots of times that's what I do. I spend a lot of time just listening to all the things that are going on. Most of the time it's not just physical. There's also emotional or other family needs that they've got going on as well. And I can't always help those, with my skills, but I can always listen and try and, hopefully give wisdom and just a lot of listening. So, yeah.
Yeah, kind of the common denominator I'm hearing between both of your guys' jobs and careers, there's a lot of opportunity to just be personable with people, and that's fantastic. But also at the same time, it can be very hard and difficult, because it's like, what kind of balance do I show, and what direction do I really try to take with these individuals? And the biggest thing that I've noticed is just 100% just staying consistent and consistently listening, consistently paying attention, providing that leadership, providing that guidance, because ultimately, like Keegan, there's a lot of people who go and work for you who they don't know what their next direction is. They don't know where they're going to go next. And you get to be that opportunity and that channel for them to really guide them in a way and towards a direction they want to be. And then when people are coming to you, they're literally desperate for healing. They're desperate to be able to feel better, to feel normal again. And you get to be that avenue for people to really just feel comfort. And I find a lot of value in that too, because I grew up playing sports and whatnot, and I know what it's like to be injured. And I know what it's like to have that discomfort physically. And all you want is to have that, to feel 100% again. And I think that's super cool between you two, because you guys really have a ministry you guys have a natural ministry, and it's just God is providing that avenue for you guys to have that kind of leadership and guidance in people's lives, even if they don't come expecting. A lot of people, when it comes to, I'm sure, the bowling alley, there's a lot of people who say, this is my part-time job or my full-time gig, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know if it's my forever or not, but you get to provide the opportunity to say, I can lead you to what could be your forever. And I think that's amazing. I think that's super cool. And then, Matt, it's like there's so many people who probably come in there and they're like, I'm hurting, I'm in pain, but there's a lot more pain than just the physical behind it. And there's a lot of mental behind it. And I'm sure, and I believe that there's going to be a day where someone's going to come up to you and say, yeah, for example, I have a knee issue, but I'm having a heart issue at the same time. And what a ministry that could be.
Yeah, definitely. And so one thing that I was thinking about as you guys were talking is that that's a lot of responsibility and almost pressure in some ways, but it's really cool. And we went to a marriage conference yesterday in downtown Springfield, and one of the things that the speaker was talking about is just as God being our source. And he used the example, I'll pull it up here, in Matthew 18. And he used the parable of the unforgiving servant. And when they came up to him and came up to Jesus and said, hey, how many times, if my brother hurts me, how many times am I supposed to forgive him? And Jesus said, basically, unlimited amounts is his point, right? It's not, and the speaker made the point of, like, it's not about the math and what's 7 times 70. Like, it's not literally about calculating that, but just that it's an unlimited flow. And we can't do that unless he is our source. We can't have that kind of unlimited flow of love and forgiveness and just really, honestly, mercy and grace towards other people if he isn't our source. So that was something that really stuck with me, but I wondered if you guys could talk about how that applies in your own life. In what ways do you make him your source intentionally? Because it really is intentional. As Pastor Ben mentioned this morning, God is with us because of his love for us, but we are with him because we consistently seek him and seek his ways for our lives. So in what ways are you guys making Jesus your source in your lives?
I would say for me, what I've been working on is just being intentional about spending time in the Word, and kind of the plans that we've been going through with reading through the Bible have kind of helped me with that. I find that I feel like a lot of times I give in a lot of other areas, and I need to make sure that I carve out, that quiet time. And so that's kind of what I've been really focusing on, kind of working on, just because, I don't know, I seem like I get pulled in a lot of other different directions. So just really taking time for what's important. So.
Well, since the pandemic has started, I really have found kind of, not a love, that sounds silly, but, this love for podcasts and finding things that are really, speaking to me right now. And a podcast is easy. I can turn it on in the car. I can turn it on when I'm at home with Hudson if he's coloring or doing something that's not, screen time, and can listen to that while I'm doing laundry or the dishes. And I love the British royal family. So I could listen to podcasts about them all the time, but it's being intentional and saying, okay, you know what? These podcasts that I have found are going to help me grow and with my relationship with Christ, and they're going to, strengthen that. So this is where we need to spend this time. And I just always feel so refreshed and just enlightened and encouraged every single time, whether it's the church's podcast or I have found a podcast that I really love. It's called Risen Motherhood. And it's basically every single podcast they have, they compare motherhood to the gospel. And it is just, it's wow. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things, because our little guy Hudson, he's 2.5, and he's a handful. And sometimes he's really hard. And sometimes that's really discouraging. Those have been so helpful, and just to kind of help you reset and get back on that right path. So podcasts.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think that something you brought up that's really important is whether it's parenthood or your job or anything, it really is easier to just pull from the random pile of Netflix or whatever, that's here and is easy in our reach. And it's something about dying to our flesh to say, okay, yeah, that's fine for a time, but I also need this the most. And I think it really speaks to that's harder, and so it's more valuable. You know what I mean? But we do need a reset sometimes. Even this past week, I was just having a hard week mentally, and I was like, man, what? Like, God just spoke to me, and he's like, what are you even doing with your time? Like, what are you filling your mind with? And I was like, okay, God, like, but it did cause me to stop and reflect and say, okay, what am I filling my mind with? What is being put in? Because even though, shows and stuff are fine, but at some point, if that's it, or even if it's the more, that, I don't know what that thing's called that I'm trying to say, but, if it's more of your time, then it's really going to weigh on you. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about your careers and the relationships that you've been building and whatnot, but Keegan kind of started hinting at motherhood, and so there's a lot, especially in Abundant, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of individuals, couples, husbands and wives, moms and dads who are at the very stage that you guys are at right now, where they have a young one running around. You guys are trying to figure out how to manage full-time job and full-time parents, right? And that can be extremely hard at times, and I recognize that. And I know there's a lot of people who feel like they're failing at it, and I don't want you guys to feel like you're failing, because you guys really are doing a good job. I mean, from the outside looking in, you guys really are doing a good job, and you guys are definitely leading the way of how to be good parents. And so I kind of want to hit that, and I'm actually going to jump off the stage and get some tissues because I can already feel some emotion coming. But before I do that, I just want you guys to really just pour out your heart in this. I really believe that you guys have a story and a testimony to share, because there are a lot of parents who are struggling, especially right now. And so kind of just tell us how you have discovered to become the parents you are today. Talk about kind of the trials and errors that you've gone through, and really how do you balance that with Jesus, and how do you apply Jesus in everything you do?
Well, I would say kind of to start off is we've had really good models for parents. And I mean, I think that's kind of a big thing, is seeing how to actually parent through someone else. And so I would say that's huge. And not even just parents. We've had a lot of good role models in our lives that have kind of taught us how to do that. As far as the struggles right now, just with everything that's going on, just being cooped up in the house. I mean, we've been struggling with that too. But a lot of it just comes to being creative, and unfortunately, they don't come with instruction manuals. So
what, they don't?
Yeah.
No.
It would be nice if they did, but a lot of it is just kind of seeing those good role models that we've seen, and if it doesn't take you don't have to look too far in the church to see a lot of good role models as well. So
Yeah, role models, and we have we have such an amazing support team with us too, from my mom and brother and his wife and Matt's parents, even though they're far away, couldn't be more supportive. Matt's grandparents and his siblings, even my employers are awesome for that. But, Hudson and I struggle sometimes, when Matt's at work, or this might be a little odd, but Matt and I just had an incident on Friday. This is kind of something that that happens a lot, is Matt's schedule doesn't give. There's no give in his schedule because he's got those patients that need him. My schedule can be very flexible, and we're so thankful for that, but we had a situation on Friday where my schedule couldn't be flexible, and daycare was canceled, so he was with me, and Hudson's a handful, and it just seems so it's a lot at times, and I had to work, but I had my 2.5-year-old, and I was in the car and I was crying because I just got off the phone with Matt because he wasn't able to come pick Hudson up, and Hudson goes, what did he say? He said, "Mommy, don't cry. Mommy needs a friend." and so we have those hard times, and I try to be very intentional with Hudson when he is struggling with something, or when he is not listening, or he can tell that I'm upset. Like, we pray. Like, "Hudson, how about we pray?" And we ask Jesus to help us, or we ask Jesus to not be scared of the potty, or we ask Jesus to not be scared of the dark, and just really showing him that, like, hey, Jesus is who you need to lean on, and like where your like comfort comes from. So, after he said that, I was like, Hudson, how about we pray? Like, how about we pray that, we're a good listener at the bowling center and that we're good for mommy until daddy comes and gets you. And not even a minute after that was done, I hung up the phone with Matt, Hudson, and I prayed. And I got a phone call that what I was supposed to be doing had been canceled. So I could just sit at work and let Hudson play. I didn't really have anything pressing that had to be done until Matt was able to come get him. And just little things, that was so little. But to me at that moment, it was so stressful and it was so overwhelming. And to to have Hudson help me, kind of help with that situation, I think was a lot.
Yeah, it reminds me of the verse that says, if God cares for the birds of the air and the flowers of the field, how much more will he care for you? And that just makes me want to tear up thinking about it, because that's so real. And that was kind of a direction that we went, a month or two ago, that we were talking about, of like, okay, yes, COVID is here. It's a whole thing. It feels like it consumes our life, but there's also a lot of other stuff going on in our life, in people's lives. And so we kind of reoriented, like, okay, we need to just see the whole picture here. You know what I mean? And acknowledge the small things and the big things and trust God with both, knowing that he's going to take them and take care of them for us. But also just keep in mind and step back and say, okay, God, I see what you're doing there, and all of these things, because it's so, for me specifically, easy to just focus on like these details, because I'm really detail oriented, and there's a time and a place for that, but there's also a time to step back and say, wow, God, I see you doing that, and I see you doing that, and I see you doing that, and all of these things. And something I've been challenged to do recently, and I haven't started it yet, I want to start it soon, is to start keeping lists of those things that I see. And especially, I think that would be so cool for you guys with Hudson, is to have a list of ways that God has helped him, or, that he can look back on and you can talk to him about as he's older and say, hey, Hudson, remember when God did this? Like, he's going to do this again for you, or he's going to take care of this too, or whatever. And that's something that has really challenged me lately, is because otherwise it's so easy just to get caught up in all this stuff. It's so stressful. Day-to-day life is so stressful. And so it makes you step back, and then you just keep that list. And when there's another thing, you add on to it, right? And when you need to go back, you just go back and you read it, and it builds our faith, and it builds our family and our marriages and whatever else it is. So that's something that has really challenged me lately that I want to start doing soon.
Okay, so I wanted to say this too, because especially while we're talking about parenthood, I have no experience. Let me just say this right now. I have no experience. We don't have a kid or anything like that, and but one thing I do know, I know what it's like to be a kid. Like I remember being a kid. And one of the coolest things I just heard Keegan say was, you will pray with Hudson. And when those difficult times come, you show that emotion and you pray with him. And you pray to God. And I'm telling you, as a kid, as a 25-year-old, and I'm thinking about this, I'm like, holy cow, how much vulnerability does that show? Because I'm a massive believer in vulnerability will always lead into more vulnerability. And I've seen that in my life. That was displayed in front of me. And I've been able to display that in front of others. But one of the most important jobs that you two will ever have is to be a mommy and a daddy. And yes, that can be hard, naturally. But like what Matt was saying earlier, being intentional, and not only just his workplace, but being intentional as a daddy, that is something that is going to bless Hudson for the rest of his life. And same with you, Keegan, to be an intentional mom, that is going to bless Hudson the rest of his life. And so I want to encourage you guys to continue to be intentional about that. Continue to pray in front of him. continue to be, it's okay to be emotional in front of him because he's learning. And because one day, I believe Hudson's going to be a husband to a wife where he's able to be vulnerable to her too because of the example you two have set in front of him. And it's obvious that we always want our children to be the best they possibly can be, to show love the best they possibly can, to be that light in this dark world. And Hudson is going to have the opportunity one day to lead his own family. And so he's going to look to Keegan in a way how he wants his wife to be one day, how he wants his daughter to be one day. As crazy as that sounds and how far away that is from now, but it's true. And then Hudson's going to remember how Matt was his daddy and always has been his daddy and always will be his daddy. And he's going to be able to learn how to be a husband to his wife. He's going to learn how to be a daddy to his daughter or son one day. And that is something that a lot of people forget in the eyes of parenthood, that you get to literally be the foundation of what his future family will be like. And I know just from our parents how what we have learned from them, whether it's good or bad, like we have learned from them. And thank God that they to this day want to be involved in our lives, you know. And so that's something that I recognize and I remember and I try to learn from because my dad taught me how to be a good husband, right? Jamie's.
I didn't know you were asking me.
Yes, I hope so. My Jamie's mom taught her how to be a good wife, you know, and that's priceless. It truly is, and it's a blessing to have that example. And so, with that being said, so now we've talked about professional, we've talked about career, we've talked about mom and dad. Let's talk about husband and wife. Let's go a little bit even further now, and so obviously, being a parent, it's really hard to be intentional with each other sometimes. There's a lot of web being pulled in different directions. So there's a lot of expecting parents or mothers in our church right now and in the world. So what would be your advice? And honestly, this might be something that you guys are still trying to be good at, right? This doesn't have to be something that you are doing. This doesn't have to be something that you have been doing. It can be something that either that you are doing or something that you are wanting to do. Or what? So give us some kind of advice on with being a mom and dad, being professionals in different careers, being involved in the church. How are you two able to still find time and be intentional with one another?
I would say it's definitely something that we've been obviously working on. It's always, I think, a work in progress. And again, it comes back to being intentional, but I kind of like the analogy that Pastor Ben used today of the love bucket and how like there's times where you're going to pour a bunch into it, but then you'll also have to take deposits from that. So I think for us, it's knowing what to put in the love bucket because she doesn't always want everything that I would put in that love bucket, really doing chores around the house or, picking up or cleaning the kitchen goes a long way into that because it gives her time to just relax and not have to worry about anything else. So I would say, to me, that seems to be pretty helpful for us and something we're continuing to work on.
And also, I think realizing that no matter what happens, no matter how my day was, if it was good, if it was bad, if it's still good, or if it's still bad, that Matthew and I were on a team. And he is always going to be my partner. And he will always love me no matter what I just said to him. And sometimes it's really hard because we sit down at the end of the day and we talk about our days, and then, I want to take this out on Matt. But he reminds me all the time that, hey, stop, I'm on your team. We're going to fix this together, and we're going to do this together, and you're never, ever going to do it alone. Obviously, we're not alone because of, our walks with Christ and everything, but, the two of us, we're never going to do any of that alone, and I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for that. I wake up every day, and I'm just so thankful for Matthew and how he has that unconditional love for me all the time, no matter what.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing that. And as we kind of wrap it up here, is there anything else that you just want to share with our church body or with each other? It's okay if not. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. And just for those watching this video today, I think that kind of something we've been doing is just issuing a challenge at the end of each of these videos. And I think the main thing from you guys would be that intentionality in whatever area of your life, whether it's professional or with your kids and family or with each other in your marriage. I think it's just being intentional and stepping back. Sometimes we like have to force us. Sometimes it just happens naturally, but just to step back and reorient our minds to really what matters the most, and that's Jesus, right? So thank you guys so much for sharing. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.